Howdy y'all, my name's Woody, very excited today to bring you news and analysis on the upcoming balance changes going live in Clash Royale on February 13th. We've got 8 cards in total that are being impacted by this balance change. I'd classify 2 of the changes as nerfs to very popular, overpowered cards, and 6 of the changes as buffs to relatively underused and in some cases forgotten cards. Each one of these changes is going to have widespread implications for the metagame, so get ready to craft some new decks and prepare for the challenges that you'll face on the ladder and in tournaments, because the metagame is going to be changing a lot in the next couple of weeks as a result of these changes. Let's deep dive into each card. Throw some TV Royale up in the background as we do so. The first change is going to be to Executioner. He was just recently released a few weeks ago, and he was way overpowered right out the gates. He's going to get a 6% damage debuff, a 0.5 tile range debuff, and a 10% area of effect reduction for his axe throwing attack. He was hitting things way too hard, above, below, to the left, right, in front, and behind him, and so this change is going to make it a lot easier for defenders to combat against the Executioner. The range nerf in particular is going to make it more difficult for players who are using the Executioner to counter push after killing something in one lane and then trying to switch to the other lane. The damage debuff doesn't necessarily change any interactions in particular, but it'll make it a lot more difficult for Executioner players to use him as a combat for the big, heavy, ground-based tanks that are out there. He's just going to become a lot clunkier overall, and I think that that's a good thing. He's just too versatile and useful right now in the metagame, and this reduction overall is going to make him a little bit more in line with some of his competitors, notably the Wizard and the Bowler. On top of these balance changes, we also expect some changes to the Executioner in the March update. They're going to make it so that he no longer hits things that are behind him, as well as creating a void zone in front of him wherever he throws his axe. Right now, whenever his axe reaches its apex, the furthest away from him, he also hits things that are directly in front of him where his axe isn't even close to him. So that's the changes to Executioner. The next round of changes is going to be to the Dark Prince. He's going to get a 5% buff to his hit points, a nice little help for a card that was relatively underutilized in the metagame this past season. We did see him in some Golem beatdown decks, but a 5% hit point buff is going to make him a little bit sturdier and help him improve him overall so that he can survive some of these swarms that we've seen recently. A lot of zap bait type decks are going to require the Dark Prince to be able to beat them back. So the next card is going to be Poison. We see a 2-second reduction in its overall duration, but a 24% increase in its damage per second. I'm classifying this change as a buff because dealing damage faster is often preferable. It's going to be a tiny bit less damage overall, but the fact that it now one-shots skeletons and is a lot more useful against big swarms of troops like Barbarians and Minion Horde by killing them quicker will make it a lot more useful overall. It's going to be great on offense, particularly with those minor poison decks that were useful back in the metagame of the August-September time frame. I don't think that it's going to rise to the usefulness that we saw with the giant poison archetypes that were doing very well at the end of last year, just because it no longer has that reduction in the move speed and attack speed of troops, but dealing damage quicker makes it a little bit more nimble and better able to combat the troops that it's going for. So Poison's getting a nice little buff here. We're also seeing a buff to the Baby Dragon. A 0.5 tile range increase is going to make it a little bit easier for it to lock onto enemies quicker and to start dealing its damage sooner. That's going to help it overall to target some of these troops like Minion Horde that you would want to use it against, even the minions, a Mega Minion perhaps, Balloon, whatever flying troops are in its sights are going to be taken down a little bit sooner with that range increase. It'll also make it a little bit more versatile in terms of retargeting different troops. That range improvement is going to make it also have a little bit better DPS if you think about it. Locking on to enemies quicker with less flying time means it's going to deal more damage overall. Excited about this Baby Dragon buff. It's been relatively underutilized, seeing just a little bit of play in some Golem decks. The fifth card that's being changed is the Witch, a 6% damage increase finally gives the Witch the ability to one-shot skeletons. Again, just like Poison, skeletons have 2 new enemies that are going to be killing them in one hit after this balance change is dropped. The Witch wasn't really very popular at the top of the ladder because it can't really kill things quick enough. It doesn't really have the survivability or the distraction necessary to become viable, and so perhaps the buff to its damage now is going to help it take out enemies quicker and overall become more useful at the top of the ladder. I definitely see the Witch being used more in decks that want to stall out and build up for big pushes and double elixir time. I think that the 6% damage buff is going to make it useful against Graveyard now, since it can one-shot skeletons and has a very rapid, quick attack speed. So the Witch overall is going to be much more popular, I think, after this balance change. The distraction factor there is going to make it a great anti-tank card, as well as a card that's going to do well against swarms. It's going to be a generalist card, so it's not going to do either one of those tasks particularly well, but I think that in terms of finding a good generic card that'll perform well under a lot of different circumstances, you're going to find that in the Witch card. The 6th card that's getting a change is the Skeletons. That's right, folks, Larry went off to the army a few weeks ago, but he is now back with his buds. The 1 elixir cheap common card Skeletons are finally going to have a 4 count total once again. This is actually a really big buff for control decks, fast cycling decks that rely upon cheap cards like the Skeletons and like Ice Spirit in order to make their primary win condition work, often looking at things like Hog Rider or even Mortar to make that cycle happen. The Skeletons now have 1 more troop overall. That means 1 more swing for enemies that they have to take before they can get through the Skeletons, and a lot more damage being dealt by them overall. If you think about it, it's a 33% increase in damage and hit points for the unit as a whole. Going from 3 to 4 is just a wonderful buff for a relatively underused card that needed some love. Excited about the opportunities to use Skeletons against things like Musketeer and Prince. It now becomes a relatively hard counter at just a 1 elixir troop. I definitely expect to see lots more Skeletons and lots more fast-paced decks in the game as a result of this, not relying so much on heavy beatdown decks going forward. Speaking of heavy beatdown decks, though, the 7th card that's going to be changed with the upcoming balance update is the P.E.K.K.A. A 2-second reduction in its deploy time will make it decisively better on counterattacking, tearing apart these poor giants, royal giants, and golems that have been a big threat on the ladder recently. Very excited for this P.E.K.K.A. change. It will make it a little bit more difficult to build up a big push with it since it starts marching a little bit quicker, but I think that that will be more than compensated by the fact that it's going to be attacking troops a lot faster. You will now play P.E.K.K.A. primarily as a way to tear apart your enemies that are attacking you and then going on the counterattack rather than using it as the big tank for your push. It is now officially the anti-tank tank. Beware Golem players, beware Giant players, and Royal Giant players. You finally have some competition for a big, heavy card that can chop apart its competitors. The last change is to Skeleton Army. It's seeing a -1 reduction in the total number of units in the army. Larry, like I said, has gone back to see his brothers. He's going to be going away. So the total number of units in the Skeleton Army is going down to 15. Not a big nerf overall. It's more like a flavorful nerf than really trying to reduce the power level of the card. But going down to 15 just means that we're going to take a step back on the usefulness of some Skeleton Army decks that rely upon that as a win condition. So Zap 8 decks that use things like Minion Horde overall are not going to be happy with this change. And we're not going to see him quite as much, but I still think that he'll be pretty powerful there. So those are the 8 balance changes that we're looking forward to. Overall, I think that the changes are going to be helpful for players who are going to be doing big beatdown decks with P.E.K.K.A. to combat the other big tanks that are popular in the metagame right now. The increase in usefulness of splash damage cards like the Witch, Dark Prince, Baby Dragon, and Poison are going to make those Zap 8 decks that you see on ladder not quite as dominant. And I like every single one of these changes. I look forward to seeing them employed on the ladder, starting with the February 13th update. So Just want to give a real quick shout out to SML, Irish, and Trump for improving the Reddit Alpha logo that you see right up top there. Wonderful work by those guys. Join Reddit Alpha if you're looking for a clan. We currently have a 5,000 trophy minimum, but you can check out our feeders Reddit Bravo, Reddit Charlie, Reddit Delta, Reddit Echo, Reddit Foxtrot, Reddit Golf, and Reddit Hotel if you're looking for something a little bit lower on the ladder, down to 3,800 trophies for our newest clan. As you can see, they've all got that red rocket emblem. We've also got a little bit of news from the developers. They just shared with us on both Reddit and the forums a little bit of information about the next round of updates. The new card rarity above Legendary has been discussed by a lot of players. It will not be coming in the March update, but they are discussing the potential for adding hero units. So in Clash of Clans, there's cards like the Barbarian King, the Archer Queen, and the Grand Warden. Could we see a card like that in the future? Perhaps. Not looking at it anytime soon, but it's exciting to speculate about those types of changes. They're also going to be removing legendary trophies from the game entirely. Not with this upcoming update, but we might see after this season no longer having any legend trophies awarded for performance over the 4K mark. They're looking to improve the end game. Great news overall. They also mentioned that they're going to be moving the clan chest from a Monday-Wednesday schedule to the weekend. It's going to be on a Friday to Monday schedule. That'll make it a lot easier for casual players to be able to complete that clan chest. It's going to make it a little bit tricky for esports competitions happening on the weekends for players to have to leave and abandon that clan chest. But overall, I think that this will help more players having this clan chest moved to the weekends. They're also planning some big changes in tournaments, both to challenges and to the standard custom tournament mode. Not a whole lot of details there, but very happy to hear that it's on their radar. And as Clash Royale develops in the future, they also look toward more clan improvements. There is going to be a small change, a super cool feature as they described it, that's going to be along the same lines as the clan chest, quite similar to it, but with a really awesome twist. So looking forward to details on that soon. We're going to be getting the next update in March, hopefully. So stay tuned to the channel here for details on that update. You can subscribe here if you want to see more awesome videos like this. Like it if you enjoy the content, and please leave a comment down below letting me know what you think about the balance changes overall, whether you think that these changes are going to be helpful or whether any of them is going to hurt one of the cards that you're liking. Are there any other cards that you want to see balanced, either improved or hurt? I think that that would be a great way to let the developers know if you leave a comment down there below. But overall, I hope that you will continue to check out content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter at Woody_CR. And until next time, guys, clash on. Woody the Mortar Mauler, signing out.